Hi, we've just checked to find that the bit with filming me. There's Christine, by the way. Um, yeah, never good to never good shot to take someone against a window. Yeah, mine's a nostril cam, so that can't be any good. Anyway, we've just had lunch and um, Elaine just shared something really interesting about the very culture in Kenya and how it affects what she's trying to do, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, first of all, part of it is that so many people in Africa just think that the white people are the walking ATM machine, and we have money everywhere, and we have bags of money to give them, which actually came from the first missionaries when they came from churches and they did give money. But most people now, like myself and some other widows, really have only the widow's mite. We have very little. And sometimes you can be giving to people and they actually have more money and more things than what you do. And on top of that, there's also the problem with the Law tribe to do with widow inheritance.
But you think that could be across several of the tribes?
Yes, I think it's not just in Kenya but in Africa,
All right.
where, say for instance, a married couple and the man dies, and then the woman is cleansed to do with other religion, the other religion they used to have before they were saved, and witchcraft. They're cleansed by alcoholics or people with mental health problems, and then after that time they're inherited.
Yeah, to spell that out, that's having sexual relations
Yes.
to cleanse them after their marriage.
Yes, and the funny thing was, I was talking to some ex-Shanga men who were now born again, and they were talking about this, that they're often so drunk they have no idea what they're doing, and they're paid a small amount of money for them to cleanse the widows. And they were saying, when they think back at what they've done, they're really ashamed
Yeah.
of that. But
And yeah, it's all just part of the culture.
well, yes, being a widow, you think, oh yes, I'd like to marry an African, but once they know that you're a widow,
They don't want to know.
they don't want to know, because they just want to inherit you. They want to inherit your property, what you've got. They just want sexual relations, be treated nicely, but they don't want to marry you. It's very bizarre for me because I don't come from that culture.
Yeah, of course.
But
it is affecting how you're operating, isn't it?
Well, it is the way people see me as a person. I like friends to either like me as me or hate me as me. But nothing worse than somebody liking and befriending you because they think they can get money from you. And I'm not saying that everybody does that.
Yeah.
But even my friend Mandy, she was talking about this dependency syndrome, even in Nigeria. Not Nigeria, Uganda. That's it, Uganda. They have a similar problem. But really, what I want to be doing is to help them, to empower them
themselves.
To help themselves.
Yeah.
By enabling them to have income generated businesses.
Yeah.
So they don't rely on the white person. But then again, God actually took me out with the word from Esther, where Mordecai says to Esther, because Haman wanted to destroy the Jewish nation, annihilate them, and he wanted the queen to go and speak to her husband, the king, and she was frightened in case he realised that she was Jewish, and he said, if you don't do something,
yeah,
then you and your people will be destroyed and God will send somebody else. And what the message God had sent me to Kenya with, unless their own people start doing something, their nation will be destroyed and God will bring somebody else.
Wow, what a key word. Wow.
That's what God brought me out with 2.5 years ago, the word of Esther.
Right. That's quite a heavy duty word, that.
It is a heavy duty word. Don't get me wrong, I do love my community and I love the people. But sometimes because of tradition and culture, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And like in England, they just see me as a missionary preaching the gospel. But Kenyans don't want that bit. They want you to provide churches, schools, clinics. They don't see the missionary as being somebody just to preach the gospel. They want you to provide something to help them.
Right.
So people in our country then wonder why I'm always asking for money. They've just got these two very different ideas of what missionaries are.
Yeah, you're walking a very tightrope really there, because you see, the reason I say that is because the gospel is a be gospel. It's not a do gospel. First and foremost, God calls us to be someone new,
Yes.
and then we express that
Yes.
through these things. But if you've got people grasping onto you for what you're doing, and they're not interested in hearing a message of be, well, really, you've almost got to up sticks and move off, because that's our message. Our message is a be gospel.
Well, yes, because really, my heart is to preach the gospel and give people hope. Out of providing things or preaching the gospel, the greatest is when I saw like Chalice, who was once a murderer and lived on the floor like an animal and was an alcoholic. His life so changed that now he's a father and a farmer and a husband, and that gives me greater joy to see life change than building, because buildings crumble.
Yeah, exactly.
But salvation stays.
Yeah.
And that's my heart.
And grows.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, I've led so many people to the Lord, and you never quite know what's going to happen to them, where they're going to go.
And of course, ultimately, we can't know anyway. We're just giving seed.
But we're just a vessel, aren't we?
Yeah.
But another thing that I really want to happen is to see groups of people and teams come to where I live.
Yeah.
Doctors, nurses, social workers, teachers, people to help, and that would really empower our community.
Yeah.
The crime rate has reduced dramatically, but we truly need people to come, because we need their ideas, we need their input.
Right.
From different people's aspects, because just from mine isn't very.
Couldn't you just go ploughing through the charity association's book in Britain and just look for relevant charities and contact them?
I suppose so, but the problem is I'm just one of many, so it's
yeah,
like
you are,
competition,
yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're on your own there, it's one thing, and when you come back, so many other people are coming back as well, and we're all scrambling to get money and to get people to go out there.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I know that will make a change, is if groups of people come. I know that Americans tend to be more giving than people in the UK, because we're very suspicious and cautious.
Actually, that's not true. It's just that what we do is give to these mega things like Comic Relief and Oxfam, and which doesn't always filter through to the ground. I think Americans understand about giving to missionaries and giving to grassroots things even more than we do, or certainly church structures. They're used to giving money to churches, but in Britain it's a very secular country really, and now for the last 50 years or so, apart from Methodists and Anglicans being ahead of the game there, or Catholics, largely it's about giving to this thing called a charity. The trouble is, like a corporation, it gets a bit nebulous as to what a corporation or a charity is.
Yes, and also what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
Whereas me, myself, when we get money, I actually do what we're supposed to do. Sometimes I might use some of it for food.
Yeah.
Because most of the time
to live,
to eat and live. But we do what we say we're going to do. But the problem is, people here, they want to do the big things for the Benny Hinns and the Reinhard Bonnke's.
Yeah.
But when me, Elaine Waterfield, says, "Hello, I'd like some money, please. We're desperate. We've got no food." They just think that I'm a Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
They don't see that God sends people out.
Right.
And He uses the weak to profound the strong.
Yeah.
And He uses anybody who's willing and able.
Yeah.
But there is definitely, God's doing something with widows.
Right.
Lots of people that I know on the Facebook who are doing the similar work all tend to be women of my age, 52, and who are widows.
Interesting. Because obviously their families have grown up.
Yes.
If they're not in a definite profession, or maybe they leave their profession. Because it's interesting, because when I was part of this team establishing a church in Paris, before the church itself got established, a lady who is a dentist, who must have been then about 52, came all the way over to Paris for a year. She felt God say to her, look, give 1 year of your time and treat it like your dental practice, 9 to 5, intercession. And she just interceded for a whole year. And on that basis, the church grew on the basis of that foundation that was done in the Spirit. So I don't know if it's going to be that God's going to call loads and loads of widows. What about the men,
It was really widow. It's funny how they're calling widows the place where there's widow inheritance.
Yeah, that's
bizarre.
Really risky. Yeah. Wow. Well, I actually think that you're sort of waging a spiritual war there.
Yes.
The gospel is not just about preaching a gospel. The gospel is also, God deliberately works it so we confront principalities and powers, and as we break those principalities and powers, the work of God can then bust forward. So it goes forward in lumps and surges as these things are broken.
Well, it was amazing because there was a witch doctor in Marabiko, just down the road from where I live. This is talking about principalities and powers. And I went 3 times to go and preach the gospel. And in the end, he asked the church to come round. So I managed to get the church to come round. And as we were there, he ran away. And since that time, he's now gone, including the little hut where he does all his practices. So, I realise that when you have people that are truly born again and praying against powers and principalities in that just one little thing, God completely takes them away. So in fact, even you don't know what's happening with the traditional culture, because it really wants to be squashed. And people need to start living the Bible, because a lot of people have 1 foot in God and 1 foot in witchcraft. Although they probably do here, don't they?
Well, it is true. Actually, there are parts of Britain that are never ever broken with witchcraft, ever. And Harrogate and around the moors, down in Cornwall, they all the pagan druid practices, or they get kind of Christianized up, like the well dressing.
Oh yes.
But there's this great thing about the green. What's it? The green man, the tree. I've forgotten what that's called. That's the veneration of trees and stuff in Britain, and all that is still there if you poke around enough. I've just heard that there's people who are local will know this, but there's a festival of Beltane. It's just gone on forever and ever. I think it's a fire festival. Anyway, but in Africa, it's this whole thing of it's been broken up a bit by modern life, but in many of the tribes, you do have these initiation ceremonies, and it's one of the first things that sort of started getting broken when people were becoming Christians. See, there was a revival in Kenya which was more or less non-stop from 1949 to 1986, and I remember, you can see it on my blog actually, the testimony of the guy who has no legs. He lost them when he was young. What's that disease? Polio, yeah. And he was saying about how you can't contextualise certain things of African life. You just have to leave them, because they are just so entwined with darkness that you just have to leave them behind. And some of these things, like the university initiation ceremonies, they go through at 14 or 15.
I know that they used to have male circumcision.
Yeah.
Not far from where I live. They don't do it anymore.
But the Maasai is female as well.
The Maasai do female circumcision.
Yeah.
But then, when I first went to Kenya, and we had a chokowat, which is like a fellowship group, where they're singing high praises, clapping, singing, preaching, and they're really singing. And I'm just used to this worship here in England, where it's modern worship with a band, a guitar. So I went outside, and the next thing I knew, there was a young man who was rolling on the floor, and he was manifesting demons. And I said to God, I'm not one of these again. I don't like it. But anyway, I went back in, and funny enough, it was God that used me to cast out the demons. But now I'm used to that kind of worship.
Well, talk about active worship.
It was. It was. It frightened me to death, I tell you. I couldn't believe this young boy rolling on the floor. Going, anyway, but as I say, God is just doing an amazing, wonderful work. And people's lives are being changed. And with our clinic as well, we need more medical equipment and medicine for our clinic, because we either give it away or sell it at a very
Low price,
low price, because I haven't got any money.
Yeah.
And I want to get that up and running.
The retroviral drugs are being withdrawn, aren't they? Or the
Yes,
subsidised ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
From America, that's what we've heard.
Yeah.
So that would mean that many people will die.
Yeah.
Not like tomorrow, but over a period of time. Yes.
Yeah, I've just put up on the net a potted version of just all the main themes to do with what the elite are doing, and one of the things is well, they never wanted to help Africa at all. So any missionaries going out there are fighting not only the situation itself, but the fact that the elite do not want Africa to thrive, and are doing their utmost to pull it down, really. So you've got these two forces fighting, and missionaries are bang in the middle. So it's tricky.
Well, it is tricky, but greater is He that is in us than he that is in the world.
Yeah.
But finally, I just wanted to say that the biggest hope was when a lady who's a widow in our church, Anne, and she was inherited by a man. But I was preaching the gospel this particular day and teaching about in Timothy, where it says that widows can remarry as long as they marry somebody that's born again. And she kicked him out. So she's a real heroine, really, in our church for standing up for the Bible.
Right. Very good.
So that's the beginning. But God's really changing people. But I'm just praying that, with polygamy and widow inheritance, with polygamy, I'm thinking, Lord, what do I say about polygamy? Because I'm not used to it. We just have one wife and one husband. But God said, when somebody is in polygamy and they're married with 3 wives and they come to the Lord, you can't get rid of the wives and the children.
Yeah.
So as long as they don't marry again. But it's good to try and speak and teach and preach to the younger people.
Yeah.
So that all that tradition
Becomes normalised, really. Yeah.